so it's 12:03. We're going to go ahead and get started. Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome back to another Cloudnatives webinar. If this is your first time here, my name is Ann Lin, and I'm the Marketing and Community Manager at NebulaWorks. And just a little bit about us. We are a global system integrator and consultancy, and our expertise really lies in helping IT organizations move the needle on critical projects by adopting a cloud-native strategy. And that is part of the reason why we started the Cloudnatives community. So as you can see here, Cloudnatives is a platform for engineers to openly and safely discuss software development best practices, explore new tech, and share with others what they've learned through their personal professional experiences. Our meetups are always hosted on a monthly basis, and it always falls on the last Thursday of every month. We try to keep it consistent. And if you're ever interested to speak at an upcoming webinar, just shoot me an email. Right now we have August and September booked, and we still have October open. So if you want to speak at that event, shoot me an email and we can arrange something. So we currently have over 700 plus IT professionals in our community with 2 existing chapters, one in Irvine, California, and one in Raleigh, North Carolina. So if you're not already part of the community, make sure to check them out and stay engaged and up to date with our current events. And if you enjoy the content that we're sharing today, feel free to check out other channels that we have available. We have a Cloudnative Slack community, NebulaWorks Insights page, and we also have a NebulaWorks YouTube channel where we upload all of the presentations, and there's also a newsletter that you can subscribe to. All right, so time to spotlight our speaker for today. So our guest speaker is Jurgen Etzlstorfer. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. He is a technology strategist from Dynatrace, where he is responsible for the strategy and integration of self-healing techniques and tools into the Keptn framework. Along with his role at Dynatrace, he also loves to share his experience at conferences on Kubernetes-based technologies and automation. In his free time, he enjoys running next to the Danube River in Linz, listening to and exploring new music, and he also enjoys presenting new music on his new radio show. Today, he's here to talk to us about overcoming scalability issues in your Prometheus ecosystem. Now, before I pass it over to Jurgen, just to let everybody know, if you have any questions, feel free to send in your questions via the Q&A chat, or you can leverage the hand raising feature and ask your question verbally. Whichever method you prefer, we'll make sure to get your questions addressed accordingly. So Jurgen, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome from Europe. So I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm just going to have to share my screen here. Actually, that's already the second slide. So let's start with the first one. Just move a little bit my Zoom controls here. So just let me know if you cannot see my screen. Just let me know in the chat, or just raise your voice and just let me know. Yeah, thanks for the possibility to talk here a little bit about our experiences of scaling a Prometheus ecosystem, all the tools in your Prometheus ecosystem. And we've gathered all this experience at Dynatrace, but also a lot when working on our open source project that's called Keptn. So I put a lot of links on here. So if you want to check it out, it's like source code lives on GitHub. We have a keptn.sh website where you can just learn more about Keptn and check it out, download it, install it. It's an open source software. It comes for free. Yeah, please just give it a try. And yeah, so for today, as said, I want to talk a little bit about this organizational scalability issues. But first, I would be a little bit interested, like how many people of you are actually using Prometheus or probably any other tool. So I'll just open my chat here. And if you just if you want, can just type in the chat which monitoring solution or observability platform, whatever you want to call it, are you using? And also if you're using this on Kubernetes or not. So maybe just type in 2 words so that I can take a look at the chat later on, and maybe I could also address some of the other parts or solutions that you are using. So thanks. A couple of answers are already coming in. So thank you for typing this in. And while I'm waiting a little bit for your answers, I just want to introduce myself a little bit in more detail, because as Anne said, I am from Europe, and I live in a city called Linz. And on the right-hand side, we can see a little bit of Austria, or like where Austria is located inside Europe. and the bottom part, that's Linz. That's my hometown. And she said, so I like to go running right next to the Danube. So there's two of my favorite running spots. I do my radio shows. That's in a building very close to one of our museums right next to the Danube. And then I live on the, like, a little bit outside of the city on the hill, like right next to this, or not on the hill, but like behind this hill. So that was a little bit about myself, and I just want to show you or tell you what is my mission for today. So I did a research. We worked with a lot of customers and prospects, and we identified some challenges for scaling Prometheus in an organization. I want to discuss these challenges. I want to propose some solutions, and I also want to learn from you. So I would be really happy if you have some comments, some suggestions, just put them in the chat or take a note and ask them afterwards. We will have a Q&A session after my presentation. So I'm happy to chat with you afterwards also. And if you have some other comments, please also shoot me the comments on Twitter, LinkedIn. We have our own Slack channel. By the way, Keptn is also at CNCF now Sandbox project. So we got our own Slack channel just a couple of days ago on the CNCF Slack. So if you're already part of the CNCF Slack, search Keptn, K-E-P-T-N. We pronounce it Keptn, like the captain of a ship, but it's written like Keptn. So join us in this channel, and you can also ask your questions there. So what do we actually want when we start our journey in Prometheus, probably Grafana? I saw Grafana a couple of times already in the chat. So what do we actually want? We want to have all those dashboards. We want to have alerts, but we have those kind of automatically set up. We want to have alerts for our production systems. We want to have alerts for our applications and services, probably also our infrastructure. And we also want to have all this monitoring data coming in as automatically as possible. So we don't want to do a lot of configuration and write all the scrape jobs and alerting rules and Grafana dashboards in JSONet or like JSON, plain JSON. So we want to have a lot of things automated. But where do we actually, we start normally we don't have a lot of automation in the beginning. So what I want to talk about a little bit is where do we start? What are our basic building blocks? What are the three most, let's say, most frequent or prominent challenges that we saw when talking to customers? And I want to show you our open source tool, Keptn, which was not built initially for configuring and automating the configuration of Grafana or Prometheus, but actually it's one thing it can do really well besides others, and I will focus on this one thing for today. I've also written about this in a blog, so there's also the link to the blog if you want to give it a try. And by the way, I can share my slides afterwards. I will just put them in the chat, so you can just take a look at the slides afterwards as well, so you have all these links. So when we're talking about Prometheus, we usually talk, or we see it a lot, it's Prometheus and Grafana. Basically, both, they work really well together. So Prometheus is basically the data hub, Grafana is doing the dashboards, and both, and you have all your applications, and they are kind of integrating both systems because you have your Grafana dashboards for it, and you have your Prometheus data for it. For today, I don't want to talk about like how to scale a Prometheus in like doing a high availability installation of Prometheus with Panos or other systems, but I really want to focus on how to deal with all the configuration that is needed for Grafana and Prometheus, because that's the things where most people struggle, that we have seen at least. So let us start with one of those first issues. First thing that we saw a lot is there was no central configuration management. So people start working with those systems, they start writing the scrape jobs and the alerting rules and recording rules, the dashboard configurations, and they apply it to Prometheus, parts of it to the alert manager, to Grafana. So it's basically writing the configuration, applying the configuration with a kubectl apply, or these kind of things. problem is if you have more stages, if you have like a pre-production system and a production system, you're not 100% sure which application is right now applied to which cluster or to which other system. So it was difficult for people to find out what is my actual version that's really running right now in production. So one way to overcome the solution is to use a GitOps approach. So with the GitOps approach, you would take all this configuration that you already have, you put it in the Git repository, and you have some kind of operator, and the operator then talks to your production environments or your pre-prod production environments. But you're not allowed to do any manual edits on the configuration anymore in your clusters. So basically, you just rewrite the files, you put them into a repository. Once it's approved, it will get applied to your Kubernetes cluster. So in this way, you really stay in control. What's applied, you have all the benefits of a version control system. So in our opinion, it's a good approach to start to make it GitOps based. Still, second problem is you have to write all these configurations. And when you're dealing with larger workloads, it's not only one file that you have to write a lot of files, you have to write a lot of different dashboards. So it's really a lot of work to write all these and also to maintain it. So it's not one initial job that you have to do, but it's really maintaining all these configurations. And once you start manually writing this, it's very error prone, and it's kind of difficult, and we saw a lot of people struggling when doing all this manual configuration. So one solution is use code generators. I've listed a couple of code generators in the reference section at the end of my slides because there are great code generators out there. You can use them for like SRE-based concepts, like basing, let's say, your alerts on error budgets, or generating your dashboards based on some configuration input. So there are a lot of code generators out there that you can already use. Some of them, they're just online. So you put in your input data, they will just create a couple of output files for you to take and then feed it into your GitOps approach. That makes it very easy to generate a lot of configuration, and it's also it's reducing a lot of errors because usually the files that you generate, they don't have any syntax errors. So it's really a nice and I think a good approach to generate the configurations that you need if you can generate it. If not, you have to do it manually, but really take a look at all those code generators and probably use them for your configurations. Another problem still arises that those code generators, they don't know of each other, let's say. So the input for one code generator is not mandatory. It's not necessarily the same input for the other code generator. So it's basically sometimes those different configurations, they drift out of sync. That means maybe one code generator gets updated, or you have to have different input for the other code generator, or you don't trigger them at the same time. You trigger them with different input, with different versions of the input. So they might drift out of time, and they might cause the issue that all your configuration is actually not in sync anymore. And although it's applied at the same time to your cluster, the input was already wrong, so you just keep having these issues. So one way is to have some common abstraction mechanism that you can make sure you feed those code generators with the same knowledge, let's say. And we saw that SRE-based concepts are really, right now, they are well understood, they are well known. SRE concepts are very well adapted. So we think it's a good approach to base things on SRE concept, like a service level indicator, a service level object, to have something where you can have not only a technical discussion, but like really a discussion about what is the objective of my service, what is the service level quality, and then you can use this information and feed it into the code generators, and then generate all the configuration that you need, generate alerting, generate dashboards, generate the script jobs, and then do the rest. So in this way, you can really define what you want to do, and are not so much defining how it is done. So like the whole technical part and writing the whole thing, you just leave it to the tools and you will define everything in a, let's say, declarative file in the declarative way. We just define what you want to have. So with this, I want to talk a little bit about Keptn. As said, it's an open source tool, and it's available on GitHub, and so you can just use it. It's actually a tool where you can do automated configuration of Prometheus and Grafana, but it was actually intended to be a control plane for automated quality gates for continuous delivery and automated operations. I will talk about those two other parts also a little bit later on. So in a nutshell, and it's kind of it's centered with a couple of buzzwords, but I'll try to explain each of them. So it's an event-based control plane for continuous delivery and automated operations. So with event-based, it basically means you're sending events to Keptn, and Keptn is also sending out events. So you can receive them within your own tool set. Everything is based on cloud events, which is a CNCF standard. Or I think it's one of those graduated projects, or at least incubating projects. So cloud events is very well understood project of the, and also part of the CNCF. We are using the cloud events specification for all of our events that are coming in and going out of Keptn. It's a control plane in the sense that you can connect other tools to it, and Keptn will control the workflow when and which tools are actually called for which purpose. And for continuous delivery, so Keptn has its own built-in workflow for a continuous delivery by first applying a version of a new version of a microservice to the cluster, just replacing the old version or do a blue-green deployment, then triggering the tests, then triggering an evaluation, and then doing either a promotion or a rollback. So that's a predefined workflow that you can just use out of the box with Keptn. You can also automate parts of your operations in the way that Keptn, when Keptn receives any problem tickets or alerts from the alert manager, Keptn can trigger remediation actions that can remediate the issue, like rolling back or scaling up or toggling a feature flag, or these kind of things. So it can really automate part of your operations as well. So the conceptual architecture in a little bit more detail of Keptn is it's an autonomous, we call it autonomous control plane, but you can really think the Keptn core is living in your Kubernetes cluster, and you can send events to it and you can connect tools to it. So I just sketched a couple of tools here, like you can connect some GitOps tools. Keptn has its own internal Git repository, but you can connect GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket to it. So you can sync all the configuration of Keptn also to an external Git repository where you have control over it. You can connect it to a container registry. So each time there is a new container image, Keptn can start its delivery workflow. You can connect it to test automation tools like JMeter or Neoload. You can connect it to chat-ops like Slack. We have a Slack bot contributed from one of our partners. We have integrations, of course, with monitoring solutions and observability tools like Dynatrace, but for today, I want to focus more on Prometheus. So we are integrating with more tools. As said, I work for a company called Dynatrace, so we also have a great APM solution, but actually we are integrating with any platform that is out there. If we just have this, the connector to Keptn, and it's able to send the cloud events to Keptn and receive it. And we have this integration for dashboarding tools like Grafana. So I think I prepared a demo later on. I just did it right before this this meetup. So let me wait for my demo slide where I show you how it works. But we need a little bit of background. So when I told you before a little bit about what are those SRE best practices that Keptn is incorporating, we basically use two different concepts. The first one is a service level indicator, and the second one is a service level objective. And it's very easy to understand and explain what it is, because the first one, the indicator is just a metric, basically. It's some measurable metric that you can use And one example would be the error rate of a login request. So the error rate would be basically a number and of a login request. So you can attach this error rate to an entity or a service in your environment. And the objective would be to basically set some objective upon the service level indicator, like the login error rate must be less than 2% within the last 10 minutes. So these kinds, you can have service level indicators that give you the indicator of service level and the objective that you define upon it. So Skeptn already comes with a couple of service level indicators built in for the monitoring solutions that we provide or that we support out of the box. So like the red metrics, response, rate, errors, and duration is already included in Skeptn, so you don't have to write these kind of indicators. And the indicator, to fulfill the purpose of an indicator, it's basically behind the indicator is basically kind of a PromQL query where you fetch this data. And a couple of it are already included in Skeptn, so you don't have to write this yourselves. And it's a library that's always being kind of extended. So how does it actually work, this service level based creation of alerts and dashboards? So you would define the indicators, you would map the name of an indicator to the value of the PromQL query. In this way, it's also very easy to change one more monitoring tool to the other, because you would just change the indicator file, and in the service level objective file, you will not have to change it, because in the service level objective file, you can just use the indicators. I hope you can also see my mouse moving. So the error rate here is just reusing the indicator upon here, from above here. And if this query here would change, you would not have to change your service level objective file. And in the service level objective file, you would just define some objectives the service has to satisfy. Like the error rate has to be smaller than 1. So we expect a maximum error rate of 1%. Or the number or the count of database calls is not allowed to increase more than 2% between the previous runs. So in this way, it's very easy to write some kind of objectives when you want to check the quality of your onboarded services. So how can you use these files? It's basically you add these files to Skeptn, and based on those files, you can then configure your monitoring tools and your dashboarding tools or whatever tools you have connected. So you would just execute a Skeptn configure monitoring. Skeptn will receive a cloud event from the CLI of Skeptn, will receive the cloud event, and will distribute the cloud events to the different tools that are connected, like Grafana, like Prometheus, like other tools that you have in your Prometheus ecosystem. You can just connect it. And we already have a connector, let's say connector for a couple of tools. So those tools are then interpreting this cloud event, and they're executing the steps upon this cloud event. Like for a configure monitoring cloud event, they would configure the monitoring solution, they will configure the dashboarding. Skeptn itself, or with Skeptn, we have defined around 20 different types of cloud events that are not only for configuring monitoring solutions, but also for starting the workflow of a deployment, for triggering tests, for starting evaluations, for starting remediations, for sending back evaluation data. So it's a lot of different events that we have that you can use for different purposes. So once these tool-specific connectors, they receive the event, they execute it, and then it would just send the instructions out to the actual tools. So, and I think with this, let me just take a look where I have planned my demo. Oh, actually, I skipped this slide. It was not. So anyway, I think here's a good it's always a good part here to just jump into the demo, and then afterwards I will show you how Keptn is also doing continuous delivery and automated operations. But as I was just talking about how Keptn actually configures your Prometheus ecosystem, I think it's a good part here to talk a little bit about the demo. So I do have my Grafana installation here. I just installed it. It should be an empty Grafana installation. There is no data source attached. You can see there is no dashboards created yet. And I do have my Keptn installation already up and running. So I can see a little bit of the Keptn's UI, what I already did. I did a test earlier today. So let me just grab my terminal and then let me execute it. So what we have here, I can get rid of. So we just focus on the left screen here. I'll leave this one for now. So I have my Keptn installation up and running, and I've added a couple of tools. Sorry, not a couple of tools. I've added a couple of files to Keptn already, where I describe the service level objectives for my simple shopping cart service that I've already created. So let me just execute the configuration of our monitoring tools because it just takes a second. And in the meantime, I can show you which files are actually used in the background. So what it actually does is Keptn configures my monitoring solution, Prometheus, for my demo project SockShop and for my demo service carts. So as I said, it's a very simple shopping cart, and my project is called SockShop. I want to sell a lot of socks here actually. So Keptn is then checking if it can find some custom SLI queries for the project SockShop. As said, Keptn has its own built-in library already. I have not defined any custom queries. So Keptn is using its built-in library for my demo. It's using the default query for the response time for the 90th percentile. And it's already telling me Prometheus successfully configured and the rules are created. So which rules have actually have been created? Let us take a look at the file. So I just move in here and make it a little bit bigger. So I have some kind of SLO file. And in this SLO file, I define the service level objective for a microservice. It doesn't say which microservice, because when I add it to Keptn, I would just add it to the right service. So it's again a CLI command where I just add it to Keptn. It will be like Keptn add resource for the service carts of the project SockShop, and I will add this, and then Keptn knows this is the service level quality or objective file for the service, and I check for one objective. It's against the service level indicator, the response time. Behind the scenes, Keptn knows how to fetch the response time because we have it in this built-in library, and I have defined two criteria. So it has to stay within an increase of 10% to the previous run, and it has to stay within 1000 milliseconds. So it's very, let's say, conservative and very, it should fulfill these kind of criteria anyway. And if it cannot fulfill the pass criteria, it will check for the warning criteria. If it also cannot fulfill this, it will fail. So in this case, we already know, for example, where we want to generate our alerts because we know what is passing, what is not passing. So based on these kind of files, we can generate a lot of different things. So what has been generated? Let us take a look. I just have to do, again, to connect to my Prometheus. Prometheus is also running in the same Kubernetes cluster, but it's not exposed to the outside world. So this was already before. I just have to reload. And I can see it created one alert for the response time in the 90th percentile. But what's also interesting is how this data was also used to generate the dashboards. So let us take a look. It should be now one data source. Oh, the data source is over here. So we now have a data source called Prometheus that's going to my Prometheus service in my Kubernetes cluster. And also I do have my Keptn dashboard, and Keptn was creating this dashboard. And that's like one standard dashboard that Keptn is creating, but you can easily rewrite this configuration the main part here is actually that Keptn can automatically generate these kind of dashboards every time you onboard a new service or you generate or you execute a configure monitoring. So you would just plug it in and it will listen to whatever cloud event you want to listen for. So if we zoom out a little bit, so now we can see that it's already kind of plotting all the data here. For the error rate, we don't have any data because it didn't execute any errors. What I can do in the background, I can go ahead and execute a couple of errors, so we can also see that it will execute this. But I just have to move it a bit. The screen, I have to move the zoom controls. And if I go ahead here and just execute a couple of like this endpoint here, will eventually raise a couple of errors. So we can also see that all the data is coming in. Probably it's already starting here to come in, not yet. So we can take a look at the end if we can see some errors already coming in. Yeah, we already have some dots here. All right, so let us come back to the slides. And as I said, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat, so I can address them also at the end. So there was one part where Keptn was actually configuring the monitoring solutions. It was a plain Prometheus installation, and we now have all the scrape jobs that was that are able to fetch all the data. We have all the alerting rules. We have the Grafana dashboards with our red metrics like the response rate, errors, and duration. So we have everything set up, and you can customize how you want. But Keptn can also, those files that I was using, they can also be used for the evaluation of a quality gate. And a quality gate is basically when you move from one stage to the other, like from a pre-prod stage to a production environment, you want to make sure the service level quality is satisfying. So we use the exact same file that I just explained, and this file is already added to the Git repository of Keptn, so we can use it when we're starting the evaluation. So we might want to start the evaluation for 30 minutes for a particular service. Keptn will reach out to the service provider or to the SLI providers like Dynatrace or Prometheus, or even a testing tool that can provide some data upon the data for the tests that have been executed. So Keptn will reach out to those tools, will fetch the data for the exact time frame of the evaluation, either given by the tool, like here we say we want to do an evaluation for 30 minutes, or if Keptn also did the delivery of the microservice, then Keptn knows when it was rolled out, when the tests have been started, and when the tests have been finished. So Keptn can do the exact evaluation for the exact time frame because Keptn was controlling the workflow. As I said, Keptn is a control plane with advanced capabilities, I would say. So Keptn knows when the tests have been started, the tests have been finished. Keptn will fetch the data in this time frame, will evaluate the data based on the objective file, and give you back a score. So with this score, it's either, if it's a pass, it's 1 point. If it's a warning, it's 0.5 points. If it's neither, it will be 0 points. And then it will generate a total score. And based on the total score, that's also defined here on the left-hand side in the SLO file, it will give you either a pass for the whole evaluation, a warning, or a fail. It just depends on your total score. So in this case, you can then either promote it to the next stage, or you can roll it back to the previous version, or if you're using this evaluation for checking if some remediation action, if some counter action to a production issue was actually doing the job correctly, you can also use, again, these evaluation files or these objective files. So service level objectives are really, I would say you can use them in multiple scenarios, either for configuring the actual monitoring tools, for doing evaluations during your rollouts, or for doing evaluations for your automatically executed remediation actions. So how is Keptn doing I was talking now a little bit about the quality gates, how you can use them, how you can use the quality gates of Keptn. And I just want to show you briefly how Keptn is actually doing the deployments and how all those files are coming into play without having you to write any of those pipeline codes. So Keptn is really rethinking the concepts of delivery pipelines. We don't have to write any Groovy code or any other like Jenkins pipeline code, but you would really define what you want to have and not how it is done. Because how it is done, that's already baked into the Keptn framework. So you would define what you want to have, and the what is, we call it a shipyard file. So with the shipyard, you would really define your environment. So it's basically a number of stages, and in the stage you want to have different deployment strategies, you want to have different testing strategies. You can also, you don't have to define any testing strategies if you don't want to define them, because in your production environment, for example, you don't want to execute any tests. You already have your end users that are doing kind of the tests for you. So it's flexible in the sense that you can define what you want to have, but predefined in the way that it already gives you the possibility to just define, I want to have a blue-green deployment. I want to have tests executed. So Keptn will then set up the internal Git repository. It will set up your Kubernetes environment in a way that it supports blue-green deployments. You can then onboard services to Keptn, like I showed you the shopping cart service, and you would just use a help chart to onboard the service. So in this way, you would give it a help chart. Keptn would put the help chart in its internal Git repository, sync it to any other Git repository if you want so. And you would add the service level indicator and the service level objective file. So with this, Keptn can now configure the monitoring solution, either Prometheus or other solutions. And with Keptn, you can then start to deploy your artifact by just sending another event to Keptn that there is a new artifact. You would send the new version of the artifact to Keptn. Keptn will start its deployment, like a blue-green deployment. It will start the tests. Also, you can just add JMX files, JMeter files, or Neolode files to Keptn, and Keptn will then reach out to the testing tools, initiate the tests, do the scoring, and then decide if it should be promoted or not, or if it should be rolled back. In this case, we want to promote it. We can do everything that's going on inside Keptn. Remember, everything is a cloud event. So we can listen also for these cloud events and just put all the cloud events or information about those events also to our Slack or MS Teams or whatever solution you're using. So we already have a couple of Slack, MS Team, WebEx. We support these solutions already out of the box. So we can promote the artifact, and then we can do the same thing again. If there are no tests defined, Keptn would just skip this phase and not execute the tests. It would do again the scoring, and if the scoring is fine, it will keep the artifact. Otherwise, it will be rolled back to the previous version. So in this case, you have all this monitoring data as a performance evaluation. So it's not only that you want to have your that you want to take a look at the dashboards and you want to stay in control because you have all these great dashboards and you can take a look at them and then decide based on what you see, but you can use all the data automatically in this kind of delivery workflow that's provided by Keptn. So how is the integration actually done in Keptn? So we have the Keptn core, that's the control plane. And then we have Keptn contributions or other services that are either provided by the Keptn core team, or we have it's an open source tool. So we already have a couple of other partners or organizations that are writing their own integrations for Keptn. So we also have the Prometheus service and the Prometheus SLI service. And we make a distinction between those two because the first one is responsible for configuring Prometheus. If you don't want to configure your Prometheus with Keptn because you already have you're satisfied with what you have done and you have solved those challenges that I was talking about in the beginning, then you don't have to use this Prometheus integration because maybe you want to stay in control, you want to do it manually. That's totally fine. But what you can still do is to use the SLI service that is responsible for fetching the service level indicators from Prometheus and then using it either in the evaluation of a quality gate or in the evaluation of an executed remediation. So those two integrations we do have, and you can use either or both. And then we have another service, which is the Grafana service, and that's living in our Keptn sandbox repository. That's a quite new service. So first, all the services, all the integrations, they go into the sandbox, and then once they are adopted, they will be moved to the Keptn contrib. But either way, you can also just use this, and this one is responsible for configuring the Grafana dashboards that I also showed you in the demo. So I put here a couple of resources I was mentioning earlier. Some code generators, also the link to the blog that I've written, a presentation on the RED method. If you're not familiar with the RED method, I think it's a great resource. So make sure to check this out as well. Yeah, I would be happy if you take a look at Keptn. If you want to join the Keptn community, we run our community meetings every week. We have our very active Keptn community on Slack. You will find all the links to the community in the first link here. The source code is on GitHub, so if you want to take a look at the source, or if you just want to download the Keptn CLI, with the Keptn CLI you can install it. It's just a one-liner Keptn install, and it will just install it in the Kubernetes cluster that you're connected to. If you just want to learn more, go to our website, or just visit us at our Google group or Twitter. I've not yet put it here, but I said in the beginning, we now have also our Slack channel on the CNCF Slack. So if you're already part of it, make sure to also join the Slack channel. It's very young, it's very fresh. So be one of the first to join us there. And just in case you happen to be at the KubeCon in the mid of August, there will also be a Keptn booth. So we will be demoing Keptn with integrations to Prometheus, Grafana, but also to other monitoring solutions. We will be showcasing how you do deployments with Keptn, how to do self-healing and auto-remediation with Keptn. So it will be very exciting for us. And yeah, if you want to join us, we would be really happy to see you there. As said, I will share. Yeah, I think I'm done with the presentation. Let's take a very last look at the demo. If we now also can see if the error rate was catched correctly. It's still the same. I think it just got lost. Here we go. If the dashboard was doing, yeah, it's kind of, I was sending a lot of errors to the dashboard, so it looks like everything was doing fine. And yeah, as said, I'm happy to answer questions in the chat. And while I'm waiting for the questions, I will also put my slides into the chat. So just in case you want to take a look, you can also take a look here. And I already saw that like the tools that you're using, I think I can totally kind of resonate that those are also the most prominent tools, or like the combination between Prometheus and Grafana is of course the one that we saw also the most often. So that's also why with Keptn we decided to first address those two solutions or those two platforms, Prometheus and Grafana, and provide automation for them. Yeah, thank you so much. And as I said, I'm happy to answer some questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jurgen. So the first question is how to integrate other tools besides Prometheus and Grafana?
So other tools can be integrated quite easily. As said, with Keptn, we have the concept of Keptn is this control plane, and everything you send to Keptn and receive from Keptn is a cloud event. So the integration to Keptn is basically to install your service. Actually, I can show you also. We have the Keptn sandbox. We provide, I start here from the Grafana service, but we provide a template to integrate other tools to Keptn, and it's written. It's one template that you can use. It's written in Go language, and you can just use this Keptn service template. And it's basically, it will subscribe to the events that you want to receive, like a configuration event or a deployment start event, or a trigger test event. If you have a test tool, you would subscribe for, let's say you have a testing tool, you would subscribe for the event of triggering the tests. You would execute your tests. That's like the logic you have to do. And then you would just send back that the tests have been finished. And that's all for the testing tool. If you're a remediation tool, you would just subscribe to an open problem event. And then you send back that you have done your job. And in this way, you can easily integrate with Keptn. And it doesn't matter which language you're using, which programming language. So there are different libraries also for digesting cloud events, I would say. So for working with cloud events, they have an SDK for pretty much every language. We have integration with folks have written it with PHP, Golang, Java, Node.js. So any language is fine. You just have to understand and be able to process cloud events.
Perfect. The next question is, can Keptn be used only for applications and workloads running on Kubernetes?
No. So Keptn itself will be installed in Kubernetes. We also provide an installer option on K3s. So K3s is a very lightweight and small Kubernetes distribution that you can use just to run on a very small VM, for example. And you can just install the Keptn control plane on K3s. So you don't have to run your applications in Kubernetes, and Keptn can also talk to the other applications. It was designed to live in a Kubernetes cluster and to orchestrate applications in Kubernetes, but with our approach to cloud events, it can also be used for other applications like traditional applications that are not living in Kubernetes. Also, we see that some of Keptn users, they use Keptn for controlling their Jenkins pipelines. So they are using Keptn and send out events to Jenkins. So they are triggering Jenkins pipelines from Keptn, and also their Jenkins installation is sometimes not living in any Kubernetes cluster. So that's no problem.
All right. And then next question, what is the best way to get started with writing SLO files?
That's right. So for the SLO files, let me just grab my studio code again. So if we take a look here, for the SLO files, that's sometimes a bit tricky, but what we recommend, if you've never written this kind of SLO files, and if you don't know what is actually the service level objective for my microservice, if you're not really sure how, should it respond within 200 milliseconds, should it respond within 20 milliseconds or within a second, what you can always do is, and what we kind of think is maybe a good idea to start with relative thresholds. So the first thing you want to make sure is that you're not introducing any regression between your deployments. So you might only start maybe with some relative thresholds that you define. It's not allowed to be slower than like the increase of the response time is only allowed to be like 2% from the previous evaluation to the current evaluation, or only 5%. So that you can see, does it stay within the boundaries or do I have some regression? It's not only, you don't have to compare it to the only one previous runs, you can do multiple previous runs. But if you have no feeling yet about what is the service level objective for your services, I would say start with some relative thresholds, and then you can work from there. And with your Grafana dashboards, you should be able to see what is the usual threshold. And then you can also use this. You can always rewrite these files. You can always trigger evaluations. You can even give your developers the possibility that they do the evaluations whenever they want to know how their service level, how their service that they've written on is actually behaving. So you can use it for a lot of different things, but start with some relative thresholds, then you get the right feeling for it, and then just set some absolute thresholds as well. Probably do a combination between those too, so you don't risk the problem of those regressions, and you can have like the benefits of both worlds.
All right. So what is the most unique use cases that you've seen that use Keptn?
That's actually twofold. So the Keptn, this quality gate functionality of Keptn, that's a very prominent example that people like, and I can show you one quality gate evaluation from my demo. It's a very, very simple demo that I set up, but what I did today is, so right before the presentation, like you can see that I'm in a different time zone than you are, but let me just reload the screen, and I can show you this quality gate evaluation, because that's one of those very, I would say, like the most prominent use case of Keptn. So we can just take a look at this evaluation here, and it's basically Keptn will reach out. Keptn will trigger the whole workflow. So it was first doing the deployment into my development stage. It was skipping the evaluation because I did not define any quality criteria for my development stage. Everything's fine. So it was skipping this evaluation. For staging, I did define a quality gate evaluation. So it did some other cloud events. You can see triggered some tests. Some tests are finished. You can see it was actually trying to retrieve the service level indicators. It was retrieving them quite fine. And then it did the evaluation. So we can see now the evaluation failed. It's red. And we can see, if I go here, I can see it received 0 points. And the problem was that the response time was way beyond the boundaries that I defined. So this is one of the use cases that most of the people are using, or like almost everyone that's using Keptn, I think, is interested in the quality gates. The other part is really when it comes to auto remediation and self-healing, because Keptn has the possibility to map a problem event to a remediation action or to a sequence of remediation actions. And it will again use the quality gates after each execution of a remediation action. It will come back, use the quality gates, do evaluation, and then execute the next step, or close the problem if there is no, like, if the problem is closed, if you again stay within the boundaries of your service level objectives, it's closed and it doesn't have to proceed. So these are the two most prominent use cases we've seen. And in the beginning of my presentation, I said, like, the configuration of Prometheus and Grafana, that's kind of, it's baked into the Keptn framework, but it's not its sole purpose. It's just we can do it, but afterwards we use this configuration for a lot more than just having the dashboards or the alerts.
All right, so 3 more questions. Integration with Jenkins sounds interesting. Can you provide a link on how to do that?
Sure. So I'm not yet sure. Let me just give it a try. We have our tutorials page, and I'm not yet sure if we have the Jenkins integration also listed here. We just recently released the version 0.7 for Jenkins, so it's not yet listed. What you can always do to go back to a previous version and take a look here. So it's tutorials.keptn.sh. But we can also take a look if the Keptn, if the integration to Jenkins is here. So there is the integration, just updated today actually, and we can see it works with the latest version of Keptn, and it's the version library 3.2. So I will just go ahead and put this also in the chat. So if you want to take a look here, that's the integration you need for integrating Jenkins with Keptn. And actually there is a whole tutorial on YouTube, so you can also go ahead, check out this. And my colleague Andy, he's walking you through this tutorial.
Thank you, Jurgen. And then can you share a few more resources about Keptn? It seems to be a very interesting tool.
So I just realized that I did not put it into the right chat. So now the resources on Keptn, sure. So, like the first starting point would be keptn.sh. On keptn.sh, that's our website, that's the landing page where you will find a couple of information about what is Skeptn and what you can do with it. In the Skeptn documentation, you will find a lot of things like how the release or how the software is actually working and how you can use it. And then we have our Skeptn tutorials. If you want to give it a try, if you want to test Skeptn, I think the tutorials are a great way to start. We have installation instructions for like AKS, EKS, GKE, all the different cloud providers. For GKE, by the way, we are partnering with Google here. So if you go for the GKE instructions, then you can get I think it's $300 additional credit. So you can actually get another couple of $100 credit in the Google Cloud if you are going here via this link. So you can give it a try here, and then we have our Skeptn community. So it's Skeptn/community, where we are also providing more resources down here. Like we have recorded a couple of webinars already here, and we have also our slide decks. We provide most of the slide decks via this link, and also we list all of our talks, and sometimes if there's a recording, we also put the recordings of the talks here. So it's a lot of information. I think best way to get started is keptn.sh, and then you can work from there, or just go to the Skeptn community and take a look more at the community content. But it really depends. If you want to learn Skeptn, go to tutorials. If you want to take a look on the details of Skeptn, go to the documentation. If you want to take a look at webinars, then also the community page is the right choice, I guess.
And Jurgen, all these links are shared in your slides, right?
Yes, they're shared in my slides. I put both links into the chat now. Unfortunately, previously I only send it to the panelists. So I will make sure to put again the links here.
Thank you. And then I'll also be sending out a recap email with the recording and a link to the slides. So if you guys don't get it from the chat, you can access it when I send it out. And then last question is, are there any competitors to what Skeptn is providing?
Yes, of course. So one part would be, if you want to take a look at the competitors, the landscape of the CNCF lists all the CNCF projects, and we are listed in the continuous integration and delivery space. So we are listed in this corner here, and it will come up with the Argo logo. We have Flux here, we have Tekton here, but we also have Skeptn here. So that's basically our competitors when it comes to continuous integration and delivery. We are more in the CD space. We're not doing building of the artifacts, so we are not competing with Jenkins when it comes to building the your Docker images, but we are doing the delivery part. So we are kind of competing with those of the that are also part of the CNCF. And then our other part is doing the automation of remediation action. The automatic execution of remediation actions. And there are also some other remediation tools that are out there. You can think of like something like Ansible Tower or these kind of things. We don't want to replace them. I think these are great tools, but where Skeptn can really excel is that we are this kind of control plane, and we can trigger the right tools at the right time. And we know that in large organizations, you already have a lot of great tools, and you're using all these tools, and sometimes you're loving them, sometimes not. But still, you have already put a lot of effort in configuring these tools. You have written all your runbooks, you have written your scripts for whatever tools you have. And with Skeptn, you can use Skeptn as a control plane to trigger the right tools at the right time, because you already have your testing tools. But maybe you start a manual execution of the tests and then a manual evaluation of the tests. But you can do Skeptn, trigger the testing tool that you already have, and then Skeptn can do the evaluation automatically and bring back the result to you, or via Slack channel to your developers, or post it on a Jira ticket or whatnot. So there are competitors, but we think you should not start by just replacing all the tools, but try to integrate those tools into the Skeptn control plane.
Perfect, thank you. And then we do have a question. Where is this chat going on Slack? Nick, do you want to go ahead and just clarify what you're asking? Just so I understand.
If I understand correctly,
No?
I think because
Okay.
I was talking about that I'm putting things into the Slack, and what Slack channel can I find this on? Okay, so we have our Slack. I will also put it in here. So slack.keptn.sh, Slack, and we have a Keptn channel. Keptn channel in the CNCF Slack. I will also put this here.
Perfect, thank you.
And I will make sure to put to also post. So the link to the slide deck, I think I've posted it here already in the Zoom chat, so everyone should be able to find it. And I will also share it again so that it can be sent out in the follow-up email so everyone has access to it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Jurgen, for a great presentation and demo. And thank you everyone so much for staying till the end and hopefully learn a little bit more about the Keptn framework. Just to reiterate, so I will be sending out the recording. I did see a few folks joining in a bit later, so definitely watch the recap of this presentation. It'll be on our YouTube channel, and then you'll have a link to all the resources that Jurgen provided today. And then something else I wanted to just quickly discuss. If there's any topics that you're interested to learn more about or feedback or suggestions, feel free to reach out to me at anna@nebulaworks.com, and then we can have a dialogue there so that we are always making sure we're giving you the most insightful topics that you are most interested in. Other than that, Jurgen, anything else you want to add?
No, thanks so much for having me. And it was, and thanks for all the discussion. So it's always great to hear, to get some feedback, to have some discussions. And I will make sure that you get all the links that you need if you want to take a look at Keptn.
Yes, and Nick, can I contact you after this? Yes, you can, Nick. All right, well, thank you everybody so much. And just letting you know, we do have the October speaker slot open. So reach out to me if you want to present, and I'll catch you at the next webinar. Take care.
Bye.